the Sandy Springs representative.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning on putting a sign up for the local citizenry in front of the property in question that there is being applications for zoning variances?
Yes, the sign will be, I believe the deadline is April 10th.
April 10th?
The sign will be up.
Okay, thank you.
Is Sandy Springs responsible for the Glen Ridge Road? I understand the
Sandy
state.
Springs is, Glen Ridge is a Sandy Springs road, so our traffic engineer will be reviewing reviewing the application, and his findings will be in our staff report, which will be available before the planning commission meeting.
And what's his name?
Mark Moore.
Mark Moore.
And will the general public get to voice an opinion about that?
The planning commission meeting is a public meeting. Opposition will get 10 minutes, as well as the applicant will get 10 minutes to speak.
That's the next. That's the next one. The next.
That's May 21st.
May 21st.
There's a community developer resolution meeting on either April 22nd or April 23rd, depending on what day the applicant picks.
Oh, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
If I understood you correctly, you said there's going to be no changes to the building, no changes to the exterior wall, if you will.
Correct.
I happen to live across the street in Glen Ridge, and on Sunday night they had a meeting there, and there were all but 2 parking spaces filled up. And I'm saying I think they did, because it was totally full, the whole place.
So if they're going to grow.
I know, if
If
that
they're
was
going-
just a Sunday night meeting.
Yeah, if they're going to grow.
A Sunday service on your behalf, I know what the problem is around
Yeah,
here. I mean,
yeah.
I lived with the Glen.
Well, it's all around there, you know. It's all.
Right, and I'm saying if that was just, well, first of all, were they supposed to have a meeting simply because it's not zoned for religious purposes at this point in time? That's my question.
I wasn't aware of that meeting, so.
Oh,
what-
yeah, that's what's wrong.
Now, they have allowed adjacent property owners to utilize parking spaces on occasion. I'm not sure if that was that incident
this was an event
or if it was an event at the church.
Yeah, they had.
No, there was an
all
event
2
Saturday
spaces
night.
were full, and I just happened to live where I could see the entire parking line. And so they were not abiding by, I guess, the rules as they stand today. But how much
It really
more
depends
are they-
on, that. I would not necessarily agree with that because they could have a meeting there. Offices can have meetings. The question is if you have a continuation of
Okay,
of
Wilkers did, and so did Caldwell,
Right.
and they filled it up.
yeah.
And it just, my concern is the same as yours, is what is the church attendance, do we know, on average?
We don't have those figures because the church as it exists now is a very small organization that probably has 100 or so parishioners. So it's very small at this stage. They hope to grow. That's why they've made an investment in a larger facility.
What will their plan be for parking?
Well, their plan for parking is to make sure that there's adequate parking to serve their facility. So if that means that, and they're not going to utilize any existing roadways, they're not going to utilize any other areas. If they plan on monitoring and measuring what they need and providing sufficient parking for their needs on
They
site.
had one meeting and it was almost full. That would lead one to believe that if they grow at either 1 or 2 or 3%, they're going to overrun the existing parking spaces. Where will they go next?
Well, that depends on, we're speculating now as to what that event was.
We both are.
Well, we are, and so there's no reason to speculate. That may have been an event where they brought other people in.
There's
So,
no reason for you to speculate or us to speculate.
and that's what I'm saying. So let's
I'm
don't.
asking the question.
Let's don't do it.
It's not speculation. It's obvious. I mean, it's obvious. It's going to
Exactly.
grow.
I mean, it's not a
It-
question.
it will.
Don't you have representatives from the organization here? Can't they?
I'm speaking for the organization tonight,
Oh, okay.
and and I will be glad. This is typically a sit around this table and look at the site plan. It's not typically having two cameras pointed at the representative and for no reason. So we're glad to deal with the issues, but the issues that are involved in this case are rezoning the property from OI conditional to OI conditional to allow a church.
Well, if they've
And-
already exceeded their boundaries by having a meeting there before it's changed, that would lead me to believe that maybe we're in a little bit of trouble.
Well, they didn't necessarily have to have any kind of permission to have a meeting in that facility.
I think the issue
Is-
was that this
so-
is just their first little, even if this is a preliminary meeting, the parking lot was already packed capacity. What's gonna happen when they start recruiting more people?
If that is representative of all of their parishioners now, and that would create a problem, they're gonna have to deal with parking issues. But if they do, if those are issues, they will deal with those parking issues, and they'll deal with them in a legal and an appropriate manner. So they're required to provide a certain number of spaces, and if they need additional spaces, they will have to provide them.
The reason that Fulton County bought that piece of land was originally for the realignment of Glen Ridge, and then the whole thing with Sandy Springs came down and it just all fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
If, by the grace of God, they actually straighten Glen Ridge out and create that traffic intersection, is that going to change? If you've got OI zoning there, are you still gonna have the available parking spaces when they realign that road and take
Yeah.
out some of those spaces?
None of the spaces would be taken out by the realignment.
It shows under there that it overlaps the wall and I think 2 or 3 spaces there.
The wall it does overlap a certain number of spaces. As I indicated at the beginning, we're having that redone because that drawing shows that as approximate apparent right-of-way line, so it's not exact.
Okay.
The arc of that line doesn't match the arc of Roswell Road, for example.
Right.
Nor does it match the arc of any part of the intersection.
Right.
So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's why I was on the wrong side of the road.
So it may be incorrectly drawn on here,
Okay,
but regardless, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces that are wholly within and one that is partially within that area.
okay,
But that would be on the very outside of the right-of-way, and of course, there's always extra right-of-way outside the curb line.
okay.
My understanding is there's not any discussion of widening Roswell Road. It was a realignment of Glen Ridge as
Correct.
it intersected
Right.
Roswell Road.
Yeah.
But they've been saying that for
So,
years.
yeah, and whenever that happens, obviously there may need to be changes made to the wall or to the signage that exists now. And that, we've got to get back in and research what happened when they acquired that right-of-way. Did they buy those rights or not? Did they acquire did they acquire them and say you can use it until we need to relocate it?
Fulton County offered to buy property from us